This lesson, we're going to be constructing a deck of cards. So first of all, let's go over to where we've got the variables, and we're going to set up the suits for the cards. So these are the various suits, and this is all going to be dynamic. So depending on what information we've got here, we can adjust, and the deck of cards will adjust accordingly. So we're just going to still start out with a typical deck of cards where it's got the 4 different suits. So that's spades, hearts, clubs, and diamonds. And then also we're going to create another array, and this one can contain all the ranks. So these are all the possible ranks that a card might have. So we know that we've got aces, there's 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And this can also be customized. So depending on what type of card ranks you want to throw into the mix, you can customize this, and it will customize the card output that you're going to be expecting. So let's save that and go into down here at the bottom where we're init. So after we've built all of the content, and we can also put this into a function so that it's not as messy. So how about we do that? We're going to create another function that's going to be just called build. And all of this construction that we did in the last few lessons can be contained within there. So just copy, paste it in. And then we're going to initiate the building of the game board. So that's the first thing that we do when we initiate the function. Just make sure that everything is still working properly. And we also did remove out the HTML from the index file so that we only have that one ID with game, and it's constructing the game board. So next thing that we need to do is we need to build the deck of cards, because this is going to serve as the base for the content of the game. So set up another function that's going to build the deck of cards, and then we can create the function just below. And then we can move these around as needed. So we're not passing any parameters in there, and this is just going to be a function that's going to take the content of those arrays that we created and build a deck of cards out of it. So let's set up an object that we're going to call game deck using the game object that we've established earlier. So this is where all of our game content can go. And I'm going to switch this over to the console because we're going to output the deck of cards into the console. And creating a few loops. So we're letting I equals, and you can also do a for loop, but I did need to use the variables for the ranks. So I'm going to keep it at this, but you could also just do a for loop, looping through all the items within the array for each. So going as I is less than suits length, and that's how many times we're going to initiate the loop. Don't forget to increment I because we need to count and a way out of the loop. And this is going to be another loop inside where we're going to, as we're looping through all of the suits, we also want to loop through all of the ranks, or all the possible ranks. And this is what's making our deck dynamic. So looping through that array and increment j by 1. And so this is going to give us each individual card. And you can see that where we've got the suits, and this is under the I, and ranks, and this is under j. So this should produce 52 different results. So you can see the script runs. We've got the ace of spades, all of the spades, the hearts, the clubs, the diamonds. And now let's create an object that we're going to add to the deck as we're constructing and as we're looping through. So create an object, and we'll just call it card. So we can add a bunch of different values to the card itself. And then within the card object, we've got the card suit. And the suit is just going to be equal to whatever the value of suits is. We've got the card rank. And this is all contained within the object, and then we can use this during the gameplay. So within the ranks, and that's controlled by the variable j. And then we've got card value. So this one is a little bit tricky because we do have jacks, queens, kings, but then we also have a bunch of numbers in there. So let's set up a variable, and we're going to just call this temp value, and let's work out what the temp value is going to be. So setting up that temp value variable with let, and first let's check to see if it's not a number. And by checking to see if it's not a number, is a default function in JavaScript to check to see if it's a number or not. And we've got an example here where it's checking to see if x, and if it's not a number, then it's going to return back not a number. And if it is a number, then we're going to multiply whatever the value of x is by 1000 and return it. So that's the example of how that works. And we can easily apply that within a ternary operator. So those of you that aren't familiar with ternary operators, they allow us to do a shortened type condition where we've got a default JavaScript operator and 3 operands. So the condition is followed by a question mark. So it's kind of like doing a if condition, but we do it all within one statement. And we've got the expression to execute. So if it's true, it's going to return back this. If it's false, it's going to return back that. And the example they give here is that we see if get fee is true, and that means that it's a member is true, they're going to get paid $2, whereas false is $10, and if it's 1, it's going to be $2 because 1 is true, 0 is false. So these can also be Boolean values that it can take in. So going back into our example, so we're checking to see if is not a number, and we're going to check whatever is being returned back within ranks J. So whatever that value is. So if it hits being a jack, a queen, or a king, or an ace, it's not going to be a number. And in that case, we want to return back a value of 10. But if it is a number, then we're just going to simply return back the value of the number. And I'm going to move the console message down below. The temp value, I'm going to output that into the console. So we see that they all get 10 assigned. And as we know within blackjack, jack, queen, king can be 10 as well. And there is one other adjustment that we need to make, is that aces can be either 11 or a 1. So we're going to set a default value of 11 to that. And this is where we're going to use the temp value and equal that and do another ternary operator. And this time the condition is going to check to see if it's the value of ranks J is equal to A. And if it is, then we know that we need to update the temp value. And if it isn't, then we're fine. We can just keep it at the temp value. So taking the value of ranks J and checking to see if it's equal in A. And that means that we're just going to make that adjustment. So let's go down to where we have the A, and we see that it's being returned back a value of an 11. And the reason we're setting at 11, and we know with blackjack, you can an ace can be either a 1 or an 11. And we're going to do that programmatically, where we're going to adjust the value once we get over 21. So until it's over 21, the value of A will be 11. And if we have multiple A's, and we are going to be doing a function for that, so that's coming up in the upcoming lessons. So once we've set up and we've established the values within the card object, we want to just simply add it to the game deck, and using JavaScript array push, we're going to push it into the game deck array. And once we're done, we'll output the value of game deck. Remove that console message, remove some of that spacing, and save. So that gives us a deck of cards, and as we can see, we've got 52 cards, and each one of these cards, they've got a suit, rank, and a value. So coming up next, we need to shuffle the cards because we don't want them coming out just as they are. So that's coming up in the next lesson, where we're going to shuffle the cards after the deck is built.